Why do I like Axis Lock? Because it has this trifecta of qualities that knife enthusiasts look for in a locking system. It's very robust, almost undefeatable. It is very fidget friendly. And finally, it's very safe because it allows you to close the knife with your fingers completely out of the way. Hi there, knife people. Hello, lady and gentlemen. 2024 is almost over. This was a year of two great comebacks. I will not talk about the bigger of the two. I don't do politics on my channel. I'm going to talk about what's important to the knife enthusiast, the comeback of Benchmade 710 Axis Lock knife. Why did they bring this model back? Because this happens to be the very first Axis Lock knife, first ever. They ran it for, I think, 15 or 16 years, and then they discontinued it. This year they brought it back. If you have any doubts about how much I like Axis Locks, just look at my logo. My channel's logo has an Axis Lock knife right on it. The great news is many companies are now making their version of this lock. The 7 picks are best in that genre. I arranged them in order of least expensive on the bottom to the most expensive on the top. And on the left are new models that didn't quite make this list, and I will explain why. Starting with the most budget, this is Ozark Trail $5 crossbar knife. I picked this because I think that if a young man or woman who is not yet into knives picks up this knife just to experience what an Axis Lock feels like, this is a great starter knife. It functions very similarly to basically a well broken in Benchmade bug out. I kid you not, I have like a dozen bug outs, and I'm telling you, they don't feel like this out the box. It flicks, it functions, it's reasonably sharp, definitely sharper than any Benchmade that comes out of their factory. And, other than custom shop that they have. And even though it's made out of a very cheap steel, probably 5CR or something similar, it will give a young person a very good experience in sharpening because they're easy to sharpen and they will have to sharpen them frequently. So the reason I didn't pick this knife, the $10 Ozark Trail, is because it feels like junk in comparison. Listen to its sound. It sounds like a shopping cart rolling down the aisle. I don't know what they did to these bearings. It just sounds like crap. The D2, I think Outdoors 55 measured hardness on this 59. 59 is a little bit of an overkill for a cheaply sourced D2. And as a result, I broke the tip off during the Tree of Doom test. So definitely, if I was looking for a budget knife, that was going to be my choice no matter what. Next, we're moving to like $20 to $30 category. And right at the bottom of this price range is this Chinese-made 7CR steel old timer. The reason I picked this knife, it actually, I will be repeating some of the same points that I made about the Ozark Trail because it feels good. It functions really well out the box without any tune-up or mods. This is brand new knife. I haven't tested it yet. The steel is inexpensive, so you will learn how to sharpen it. It came sharper than most Benchmates come out the box. Somehow it reminds me K98 carbine from World War II. Just the same aesthetics. And while this is synthetic material, forgot what's the name of it is, it does resemble stag bone, and I kind of like the aesthetics. Call me an old timer. Wah, wah. So I was hopeful when I got this CJRB Acacia crossbar lock knife. I was very disappointed before I even discovered that this particular knife hits the backstop here, or hits that back spacer here, and dings the blade. Even if it didn't, it's a very mediocre knife. And I want to caution so it takes a lot of effort for me to flick it. I have to really jam my finger in there. I would like to caution any and all of my viewers, do not buy any knife made out of RPM 9 steel. I had tested 3 other knives in this steel, and every time I stabbed a tree with it, the tip broke off very quickly. So while it has decent edge retention properties and it's reasonably corrosion resistant, it's not a very tough steel. So it's probably the least recommendable steel on the market today. So now we're moving to a $30 to $70 price range, which we consider mid-range. This is Korsha Mini Iridium. So I think this knife represents absolute perfection in systems design. This knife was conceived as a system of elements that lead to one thing: small EDC tasks. It has no more and no less than required to achieve these tasks. Feels really good in hand because it's not overly flat like some of the knives. It's not overly heavy like some others. It has a D2 blade. Korsha makes sure the D2 is a quality sourced steel for their knives, and their heat treats are very good. For D2, we're always looking at between 57 and 59. I think 59 is the limit after which it becomes a little bit too sporty, and as far as toughness goes, gets less and less tough and more prone to cracking. The reason I didn't pick the full-size Iridium for this selection is because it came out a year earlier, and to be honest, I think that the D2 blade, there's nothing wrong with using D2 on a knife this size, but I wish it was a little bit thicker just to guarantee that extra bit of toughness toward the tip. Other than that, it's a great knife, highly recommendable, but it was released earlier. Now we're getting into a little more expensive categories. This knife is a $72 knife on the Knife Center. It's made by Bear & Son Corporation. They're located in Alabama, Jacksonville, Alabama. And it's a small, tiny little town between Oxford and Anniston, Alabama. I've been to their store, and that's where I bought this knife. But the Knife Center has it 72 or 74 bucks. They're reasonably priced. Let me go through the specs. It's a good old American brand. They started out as part of the Case supply chain, then split off into their own company. I believe they are partly owned by, at least they're a member of the Catco conglomerate, but they're independently owned. So it's complicated, but that's how I understand it. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I apologize, it's unintentional. Really good company. They have 150, 170 employees right there in Alabama. And they have 3 major lines: Bear & Son, Bear Ops for their more tactical applications, and Bear Edge. So Bear Edge is fully produced abroad. Bear Ops and Bear & Son are made in the US. Sometimes they list Bear Ops with foreign-made components, if I recall correctly, or Bear Edge made in the United States, so they cross-pollinate a little bit. But it's predominantly US-made knife still. And this one is called Custom Slide Lock. So they call Crossbar Slide Lock because it slides, makes sense. And it's not geared toward like a Metal Complex type knife enthusiast. It doesn't flick particularly greatly, although you can do it when you put your mind into it. It just opens gracefully. You know, you can finger slide it, and obviously you can pull the lock back, and it snaps open. The reason I put it in the lineup, I think it also has a good balance of design features for its purpose. Obviously, it's a gentleman's knife, and it's not going to see hard use in tough elements. It's more of a steakhouse knife. Pull it out, open it with panache, cut your steak or whatever you're having, and wipe it off and put it away. To that effect, they made the blade out of D2. And I checked, the hardness was perfect, 58, spot on. And the rest of the steel, like on the bolsters, is not known to me. There's a stainless frame. What I like, they were smart enough not to put bronze bearings or bronze washers in there. It runs on nylon. The reason I say that is because when you have D2, which is not a corrosion, not a stainless steel, with stainless liners, and if you put any copper alloy in between them, as soon as you get it into a wet, humid, or sweaty environment, all of which applies to Alabama, the galvanic corrosion between the dissimilar metals will occur. So by putting nylon in between, it's like putting an insulator on your wire. It prevents corrosion. So yeah, it doesn't snap as if it was on metal to metal washers or bearings, but you know, it still works for me. And the wood was Cocobolo. So I don't know if you watch Better Call Saul and remember the scene with the Cocobolo desk. I will never own a Cocobolo desk. That's as close as I can get to Cocobolo wood. And it feels like it's resin impregnated, or at least very, very hard. They call it custom, and I see evidence that this knife was custom assembled in a custom shop because there's no sort of transition here. It looks like they sanded the handle when the wood was already installed, which is a very custom feature, not frequently seen, even on very much more expensive knives. And basically, you can see where they hand rubbed the satin here. They high polished the blade all the way to the tang. When I opened it up to check the hardness, the tang was polished. They clearly grinded after heat treat. All the grinds are done after heat treat. It's a well-made American knife. Now, as a counter from the same brand, is a really crappy made American knife. They call it a Rancor 9. That's an iteration of their Rancor series, first Rancor in slide lock, and I have never succeeded in either flicking it without the wrist like this, or closing it completely, because this protrusion that has to do with their flipper, which I'm thinking about cutting off or leaving it alone, on the way back in, it hits if you don't release, so if you flick it back and forget to release, you keep holding on, which most of us do, it hits the crossbar and it prevents it from fully closing, so it does this. So I really hate this knife. This was about the same price too, that's funny. So mistake, like, I don't want to bash the entire Rancor series. They have these excellent knives in this series. It's not on the table because it's obviously not a slide lock or crossbar. So Rancor is a pretty decent, well-respected by U.S. military series of knives. They sell them in the post exchanges to our military guys. I haven't seen this one. This came from Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is a supermarket type gas station shop. So it literally is a gas station knife, even though they didn't intend it like this. So if this knife functioned like it does, but with the axis lock, it would be definitely on the table in the same price category. It's a fantastic liner lock flipper, Rancor series. So stay away from 9, and 9 is German for no, so let's stick to it. I'm moving on into the category that I'm going to say between 120 and 200. So in that category, I got this Vastid Parallel. I think the purpose of this knife is to be an antidote to anyone who is poisoned by the idea of buying an ultra slim, ultra light titanium handled knife, and prevents them from going to Benchmade mini narrows. It's the same size as the mini narrows, and like almost new, so not fully broken in. They executed, let me put it this way, their axis lock or crossbar lock is executed to the same level as a Benchmade would. It runs a little slicker because of the bearings versus washers. I don't think bearings are necessary on a knife this size, but I could be wrong. I'm sure people will comment. It weighs maybe 1/10 or 2/10 of an ounces more than Narrows Mini. I have a Narrows on the table here, the full-size Narrows, but I will talk about it a little later and why it's on the left, not on the right. But you can see, so Mini Narrows is the same dimension here in thickness, and they're close matched. And what is different, this may be a little bit heavier because I don't think they sculpted out the titanium on the inside or the outside. So it got a little bit of extra weight. It runs great. It's 154 cm ingot steel to keep the price down. It's under $130 right now, also Knife Center. And again, I'm not affiliated with them, but I am local to where they're located, so I don't mind helping the local economy out by mentioning the Knife Center. So definitely worth you taking a look. Feels very premium. Comes with a nice gift package. Has like a little tin can that you can build like a survival mini kit with. I really like this knife. I really like this brand. Not everything they do is as good as this, but oh yeah, and another thing, keep in mind that 154 cm, while it's stainless, it's not as stainless as some other steels, because it's in, I believe it belongs to air quenched family. So if you leave it, you know, with some sweat on it or cut something acidic and don't wipe it off, you will get a little bit of a patina, as I did over here. But it's a surface patina, it comes off very easy with penetrating oil. So what I put on this side of the table in this price category is this $180 MSI. So if you recall, in 2023 on my channel, I was the first one to find out how weak was the original ram lock in spine whack test, and I still have a memento from that event. So what happened after I published 4 or 5 videos talking about it, company, I believe, paid attention, community paid attention, and that rumor or that and that knowledge spread through community. A couple much bigger channels mentioned that on their channel. So the sales slowed down enough by the end of 2023 to cause Tony Marfion to go back to the drawing board and redesign the lock. So it's a completely different lock now. It does the opposite lockup approach than the previous one, and it works. It does not break on the spine whack. Now, the reason I did not put it on the right, because it doesn't give you a full experience of an axis lock. Reason is it's sluggish. The blade that massive, you will see when I get to the larger knives here, should fly out. This one just tends to, you know, slowly roll. And I don't understand how they manage to achieve that, you know, functionality decrease, because I never seen it on most quality crossbar locks. That said, it's a really cool knife. I carry it often. Now that I'm not afraid, no matter what, it's not gonna unlock and whack me here. And you know, I really like that gray aluminum, natural gray aluminum with the apocalyptic finish on the blade. So yeah, so I think it's still a really, really good value for the money, but it just doesn't go that one extra mile to give you that premium feeling when you're operating a knife in a mid 100s to 200 range. So I think this $130 or less, actually less $130 knife, does a better job of that. So that gets us to my top 2 selection, right? So they're right now arranged by price. I will tell you in the end of the video which one I think is the best knife on this table. So I picked this Crew Carter, they call it. This is a CPM Crewwear blade with micarta, natural brown micarta scales. The traditional ergonomic of the Manix 2. It has a, I think this one has a steel ball locking system, and you know, jimped liners, full liners all the way along. It's incredibly pleasant knife to operate, and that premium knife feeling, that little, you know, smooth as butter but rapid deployment and an ease of closure, everything kind of adds up and gives you that feeling that you didn't pay your 200, I think it's under 230, I think 224 on most sites. It gives you a feeling of much more expensive knife than that. The blade is thick. This is a premium style grind when they go from the spine all the way to the secondary bevel in one full flat grind. So sharpening on the Spyderco knives is impeccable. I mean, some experts out there would peck at it and say there's no sharpening choil, which is easily added. And Spyderco will say, well, we don't care because we don't want the knife to get stuck in something when you cut it, even as they adding this very aggressive finger troll with jimping. So go figure, it's just their cork. The reason I didn't put, which I also own, the Manix lightweight salt, Manix 2 lightweight salt series in CPM MagnaCut is because of the MagnaCut. They did not do a particularly fantastic job heat treating MagnaCut. It's like, it's like right around 60 to 61, somewhere in that range. And I think they were erring on the side of more corrosion resistance because MagnaCut, in case you didn't know, does have slightly better corrosion resistant at lower heat treat levels. And I think somebody commented on my channel that at much higher heat treat levels, like when it's in like 64 to and up, then it gets even more corrosion resistance. But I'm not sure. I haven't tested the knife in that hardness range. I did test these knives, and as you can see, it does get a little corrosion because it has a brass washer in there, or bronze washer in there, but all the rest of the hardware is stainless, LC200M. Now, I digress, as I was fearing. The reason it's not on this side of the table is because of softer MagnaCut. I think should they gone to 61 to 63, it would be a switcheroo. But since I have it open ergonomically, even though it's a lightweight, the way it feels in the hand, it's about the same, except this knife has a different balance. It obviously weighs heavier toward the blade, so the balance point is somewhere right at the pivot, as opposed to this knife, it's right behind the crossbar lock. Oh, and another significant difference, this has a glass bowl for better corrosion resistance to lock it, and this has a, or is it ceramic, some kind of ceramic bowl, shouldn't say glass, and this one has a steel bowl, so if you swap them around, this would corrode more. And the reason it's not on the table is because of that. And also roughly the same price category, I put this Benchmade Water Series full-size Adira, and you could throw a small mini Adira in that category. This didn't measure up for the same exact reason, because MagnaCut is heat treated at 60 plus or minus 1. That is not, it's like wasting my money on empty sounds, because MagnaCut without the actual heat treat above 61 is a hollow sound to me. And now the most disgustingly expensive knife on the table is Benchmade 710 McHenry & Williams 25th anniversary edition production. It's not a limited edition. I think it's an excellent knife. Forget the price for a second. It is better in several respects than the original. So let me enumerate, other than like this smooth action, let me enumerate things that make this knife worth your attention, even at that crazy price. S90V. So as you well know, S90V is a feature on most Benchmade premium knives, right? The only higher grade knives they make are made with Damasteel in the gold class. Next, they use this aluminum, and I believe they either opened a subsidiary aluminum company or they have a new vendor somewhere in the US that makes aluminum components for Benchmade now. And lastly, besides the aluminum, the very important feature on this knife is a new style Omega spring. It's roughly the same shape as the original Omega spring, but the metal it's made out of has a rectangular cross section. So it's basically a flat spring bent into Omega shape, and it inserts completely differently from the original Omega. It doesn't have that very sharp 90-degree bend where the tabs go into the holes. I think the function was largely improved thanks to that spring. And here is a knife that didn't make it on this side of the bench because, you know, first of all, it's even more expensive, believe it or not. It's made with the M390 steel. It's not as ergonomic. It doesn't have the same sort of, how do I say it? Smooth but solid action. It feels a little flimsier. But it has some really cool features, like this has a torsion spring. It does not have a mega spring. So the reason it didn't make it on this side of the table, it's too niche. You know, like everyone can find use for 710. Only few people would actually use this knife as much as they would use the 710 or like Mannix. And it's over 500 bucks. Whether it's large or mini version, doesn't matter. It's a little bit difficult to sort of reconcile. Doesn't feel as premium as any of these top three knives. Even this diminutive Vastid Parallel feels a little more substantial because of how they tuned their Omega springs. All right, it's time to wrap up. And now, as promised, I will disclose which one I think is the best crossbar lock knife released in 2024. The third place definitely goes to this Bear & Son custom slide lock. And the reason is I could not imagine that a handmade American knife with a lot of premium features could be had for 72 bucks. I am going to put Benchmade 710 into second place. I love this knife, but the price is so prohibitive that I don't think a lot of people get to enjoy this system in its true capacity as a tough and hard-working tool. So here's my pick for the 2024 crossbar knife of the year, being torture tested in my Hype Smasher. Yes, I test a lot of these locks to see if they will unlock on a spine whack, like the original Ram lock, before they modified it. This knife clearly survived my abuse, came out unscathed. I am also excited about how well balanced this knife is. From physical dimensions, weight, etc., ergonomics, the selection of materials, the heat treat of the blade, and the price, they all kind of converge together to give you a perfect little EDC that you are not embarrassed to pull out of the pocket, and you're not afraid to use hard at some tasks that normally are reserved for much bigger knives. Definitely, Kershaw Mini Iridium takes the cake in 2024. I wish the companies would stop chasing their own tail, stop pandering to these mass production knife reviewers, and just focused on designing a great system that anyone could afford, could enjoy, and could use in whatever situation life throws at them. And that's all I had to say about that. So write me a comment if you agree or disagree. Would you pick a different knife from this selection? Did I miss a great crossbar lock knife that came out this year? So happy New Year, everyone. Let's see what 2025 will bring.